You're the Luna who gave up your mate bond, your soul's connection, to save your king and your entire pack from total destruction. You bleed, you fight, you walk into forbidden wilds alone, and you come back a hero. He kisses you like you're oxygen. He holds you like you're forever. For months, everything is sunlight and whispered promises under the stars. Then one dusk, in front of the whole pack he once swore to protect with you, he hands you a folded letter, and he says 3 words that shatter your world. Throw her out. The same hands that once carried you through palace halls now command your exile. The same golden eyes that once looked at you like you hung the moon now won't even meet yours. You walk away carrying his child he doesn't know. Years pass. The kingdom he tried to save collapses without you. And one night, under the same merciless moon, the broken Alpha King crawls through the dirt on his knees, silver in his hair, voice cracked, begging at your feet for the family he threw away. Now the only question left is, would you let him touch the child he never knew existed? Would you give him one more chance after he handed you the blade that cut your heart out? Or would you finally choose yourself and let the kingdom fall? This isn't just a story. It's the kind of love that hurts so beautifully you can't look away. Stick around, because the answer might break you. Hit that follow, like this comment part 1 if you're ready to feel it all. Who are you rooting for, her strength or his redemption? Drop your answer below, and let's go. Chapter 1. The night the moon asked for everything. The howls drifting through the pines weren't victory songs anymore. They were broken, ragged things that scraped across my soul like claws on stone. I stood at the edge of the royal balcony, silver moonlight painting the ruined fields below us in cruel beauty. Our pack, once the terror of every rival territory, was bleeding out. Another border skirmish lost. Another village in ashes. Another dozen warriors who wouldn't come home. And my mate, King Riker, carried every death on his shoulders. I watched him through the open doors of our chambers, heart twisting so hard I had to press a hand to my chest. He paced like a storm trapped in skin, broad shoulders, rigid, dark hair wild from sleepless fingers, those golden eyes I'd fallen in love with now dull with exhaustion. The Alpha King who could make the earth tremble with a single command hadn't slept in 23 nights. I counted everyone. Riker. My voice came out softer than I meant, but the bond between us flared anyway, pulling me toward him like it always did. He stopped, turning those haunted eyes on me. For one fragile second, the hard lines of his face softened. Isolde, you should be resting, my Luna. Rest? While the man I loved was killing himself trying to hold our world together? I stepped inside, the cool night air following me like a warning. The stakes had never been higher. One more defeat and the pack would fracture. Pups would starve. The Silverwood legacy Riker's father had bled for would vanish. I couldn't let that happen. Not to him. Not to us. I crossed the room slowly, silk nightgown whispering against my skin. He watched every step, the way he always did, like I was the only light left in his darkness. When I reached him, I didn't speak. I simply rose on my toes and kissed him. The kiss started gentle, a quiet promise in the middle of chaos. Then his big hand slid to my waist, pulling me flush against the hard heat of his body, and everything ignited. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Mine, it said. Always mine. I smiled into his mouth, the small spark of happiness cutting through the pain like starlight. This was us. This was what I was fighting for. He lifted me without effort, carrying me to the massive bed we'd shared since the day the moon goddess bound our souls. The moment my back touched the furs, his mouth was on my throat, teeth grazing the sensitive mark he'd placed there years ago. Heat pooled low in my belly, sharp and sweet. Gods, Isolde, he breathed against my skin, voice rough with need and something deeper. Gratitude, desperation, love so fierce it stole my breath. You feel like coming home every single time. His hands roamed, calloused palms mapping every curve like he was memorizing me. I arched into him, fingers digging into the powerful muscles of his back as he stripped the silk away. When he settled between my thighs, slow and reverent at first, then deep and urgent, the world narrowed to just us. The way he moved, strong, possessive, worshipful, drew gasps from my lips and tears from my eyes at the same time. Pleasure built like a storm, crashing over us both until we shattered together, names tangled in the dark. Afterward, he held me close, chest rising and falling in the first peaceful rhythm I'd heard in weeks. I traced the scar along his collarbone, smiling softly, even as my heart cracked. In this moment, he looked almost like the Riker I'd married. Fierce, whole, mine. I wanted 1,000 more nights exactly like this, but the pack was dying, and I was the only one who could stop it. The goddess had shown me the path in a vision 3 nights ago. An ancient alliance in the forbidden eastern wilds, a power older than our bloodlines that could end the wars. No one else could reach it. Riker would never let me go if he knew. He'd chain himself to the front lines until there was nothing left of him. So I had to leave tonight while he finally slept. The happiness we'd just shared turned bittersweet on my tongue. I slipped from his arms, the sudden chill raising goosebumps on my skin. Every movement hurt. I dressed in dark traveling leathers, packed a small satchel with dried meat, a dagger, and the moonstone pendant he'd given me on our bonding day. My hands shook as I wrote the note on parchment, tears blurring the ink. My king, I'm doing this for you. For the pack. For the future we both deserve. Wait for me. I love you more than the moon loves the night. Your Luna. I folded it and placed it on the pillow beside him. Then I leaned down and pressed one last kiss to his forehead, breathing in the scent of pine and smoke and everything that was home. The bond screamed at me to stay. Pain lanced through my chest. Sharp, beautiful, unbearable. I smiled through the tears anyway because loving him had always been both. I crept from the chambers past sleeping guards who never saw me, through the silent halls that once rang with laughter. The forest edge loomed ahead, dark and alive with danger. One step and there was no turning back. I took it. The trees swallowed me whole, the bond stretching taut behind me like a silver chain. Riker's sleeping face flashed in my mind, peaceful at last, and fresh tears slipped down my cheeks, even as a fierce, loving smile curved my lips. This was going to hurt, but for him, I would burn the world and smile while it turned to ash. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Wild. The forest took me without mercy. One step past the last pack sentry post, and the trees closed ranks like silent judges. No farewell howls trailed me, no familiar scents to comfort, just cold earth under my boots, and the silver cord of the mate bond stretching thinner, with every heartbeat, pulling so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. I forced myself forward, fast, low, deliberate. The eastern wilds were a 3-day death march if I didn't stop. No fire. No rest longer than a snatched breath against a trunk. Shift too soon and the wolf would scream for Riker across the miles. He'd wake snarling, already hunting. I couldn't let him find me. Not yet. Not until I'd finished. What the goddess had carved into my soul. 3 nights ago in that fevered vision. An ancient power sleeping in the forbidden borderlands. Older than bloodlines. Strong enough to end the wars devouring us. I ran. The moon watched, impartial and cruel, spilling pale light that turned every shadow into a threat. My legs burned. My lungs ached. And still, God's help me. My mind kept dragging me back to our bed hours earlier, his weight pinning me gently at first, then urgently, the way his calloused palms had slid up my thighs, parting them with reverence even as hunger darkened his golden eyes. The low, broken growl when he sank into me, slow, deliberate like he was trying to memorize every inch of heat and silk and home, my nails raking down his back, drawing thin red lines he'd wear like badges tomorrow, the way he'd buried his face in my neck, teeth grazing the mate mark he'd placed there years ago, whispering my name like a vow while pleasure, coiled tighter and tighter until we both, shattered, gasping, trembling, laughing softly in the wreckage of sheets and sweat and love so fierce it hurt. I smiled now, even as tears blurred the path ahead. That laugh had been real. The last pure sound we'd made together before. I chose exile over watching him die slowly on the throne. The memory kept me moving when exhaustion clawed at my edges. Loving Riker had always been lightning in human form, beautiful enough to blind, dangerous enough to burn. I wouldn't trade the scars for anything. A twig cracked, sharp, deliberate. I dropped instantly, melting into ferns and shadow. Pulse hammering. Scent hit me next. Iron, old blood. Foreign pack musk, Blackridge, the same bastards who'd torched our southern hamlets. Last full moon, 3 of them, close, circling. I eased the dagger free, thumb testing the wicked edge. No running, they'd hear. No full shift. The change would roar through the bond like a beacon. Just me, steel and rage. One stepped into moonlight, tall, scarred jaw, yellow eyes gleaming with greed. Royal scent, he rasped. Female fresh, the Luna's out here alone? Low, ugly laughter answered him. My blood turned to fire. They thought I was easy prey, a prize to drag back broken. They were wrong. The first lunged, claws half extended, confident. I rolled left, came up behind, drove the blade under his ribs in one smooth, brutal arc. Hot blood sprayed my forearm. He choked once and dropped. The second snarled, charging blind with fury. I sidestepped, kicked the side of his knee, bone snapped like dry wood, then slammed my elbow into his windpipe. He gurgled, staggered, clutching his throat. The third was smarter. He hung back, circling, waiting for an opening. I didn't give him one. I used a fallen pine as leverage, launched myself upward, collided mid-air. We crashed hard. His claws raked my shoulder, pain flared white-hot. But I twisted, jammed the dagger into the meat of his shoulder, yanked it free, and slashed across his throat in the same motion. Blood arced dark against the moonlight. Silence swallowed the forest again. I rose slowly, chest heaving, hands slick crimson. 3 bodies at my feet, 3 less threats to my pack, to Riker. For one savage heartbeat, triumph roared through me, sharp, intoxicating. I'd done this, alone. No king, no warriors at my back. Just a dagger and the will to protect what was mine. Then the weight crashed back. Dead scouts meant Blackridge would send more. Riker would wake soon, find my note, my empty place in the bed, the scent of me already fading. I could almost hear his roar shaking the palace walls, feel the panic flooding the bond. Fresh tears tracked down my cheeks, mixing with blood and dirt. I smiled anyway, fierce, loving, broken. I'd won this skirmish. Small, bloody, mine. But the real war waited deeper in the wilds. I cleaned the blade on a dead cloak, sheathed it, pressed a trembling hand to my chest where the bond still ached like an open wound. Somewhere behind me, the man who owned my soul was waking to a nightmare. The pain was exquisite. The love was merciless. I turned east and ran on, deeper into darkness, carrying the memory of his touch like armor, the taste of our last night like fire in my veins. The wilds weren't done with me yet, and I wasn't done fighting for him. Chapter 3, Blood for the Crown. Dawn never truly came to the eastern wilds. The sky bled gray instead of gold, and the trees grew taller, older, their bark scarred with runes no living wolf could read. I'd been running for 2 nights straight, short bursts, long pauses to listen, licking blood from my own wounds when the pain got loud enough to distract me. The shoulder the scout had raked still wept sluggishly, but I'd bound it with strips torn from my cloak. No fever yet. Small mercies. Every mile stretched the mate bond thinner, a silver wire singing with strain. I could feel Riker on the other end. Fury first, then panic, then something quieter, colder. Grief. It clawed at me worse than any claw. I pictured him tearing through the palace, roaring my name until the walls shook, guards scattering like leaves. The note on his pillow would be crumpled in his fist by now. My scent fading from our sheets. Our bed. I pressed my forehead to the rough bark of an ancient oak and let one silent sob escape. Just one. Then I straightened, wiped my face with a bloody sleeve, and kept moving. The vision had shown me this path clearly. A hidden grove at the very edge where the veil between worlds thinned, guarded by something neither wolf nor man. A price would be demanded. I'd pay it. Whatever it cost. The third day blurred into exhaustion. My legs trembled. Hunger gnawed. Thirst scraped my throat raw. I found a stream, clear, cold, and drank until my stomach cramped, then refilled the small skin I carried. When I straightened, the air changed. Thickened, a low hum vibrated through the ground, like distant thunder trapped underground. The trees ahead thinned into a perfect circle of standing stones, each taller than 3 wolves stacked, carved with spiraling symbols that seemed to shift when I blinked. In the center, a single slab of black obsidian smooth as glass reflecting nothing, I stepped inside the ring. The world hushed. No birds, no wind. Even my heartbeat sounded muffled. Then she appeared. Not a wolf, not human. Something older. Skin like moonlit marble, hair the color of midnight rivers, eyes twin voids that drank light. She wore armor of living vines and thorns, and when she moved, the air rippled like water disturbed by a stone. "Luna of Silverwood," she said. Her voice was many voices layered, soft, cruel, ancient. "You come seeking the heart of the first howl." I forced my spine straight despite the way my knees wanted to buckle. "I come to end the wars bleeding my pack dry, to save my king, my mate, my home." She tilted her head. "And what makes you believe the price is yours to pay?" "Because no one else will." My voice cracked on the last word. "They're dying. He's dying. Slowly. Every night he doesn't sleep, every warrior who falls. It's killing him. I won't watch it happen." The guardian stepped closer. Thorns on her armor rustled like whispers. "The heart is not a weapon. It is balance. It will end the wars only if the one who wields it is willing to sever what binds them to destruction." I swallowed. "Tell me the price." She smiled. Small, sad, terrible. "Your bond. The silver cord that ties your soul to his. Cut it, and the heart wakes. Your king will rise unchallenged, his enemies broken, his pack whole. But you will never feel him again. Never scent him. Never know the warmth of his touch. You will walk the world as shadow to his light. Close enough to see, never close enough to hold." My breath stopped. The bond pulsed in protest, frantic, alive. I could feel Riker even now, searching, desperate, his pain mirroring mine across the miles. I remembered his laugh in the dark after we'd loved each other senseless. The way he'd kissed the tears from my cheeks when I worried for the pack. The way he'd looked at me like I was the only reason the moon still rose. To lose that, to lose him, tears burned tracks down my dirt-streaked face. But beneath the grief, something fiercer rose, love so deep it didn't flinch from sacrifice. I'd already left him once. I'd already chosen the pack over my own heart. What was one more cut if it saved everything? I lifted my chin. "Do it." The guardian's eyes flickered. Surprise, perhaps respect. She raised a hand. A thorn vine uncoiled from her armor, sharp as any blade, and hovered above my chest. "Speak your vow," she commanded. "I, Isolde, Luna of Silverwood, offer my bond to the heart of the first howl. Let it wake. Let my king rise. Let my pack endure. I sever what ties me to him so he may live free of ruin." The vine struck swift clean. Pain exploded white-hot behind my ribs. I screamed, dropping to my knees as the silver cord snapped like crystal shattering. For one endless second the world went silent. No pull, no warmth, no echo of Riker's soul brushing mine. Emptiness. Then the obsidian slab cracked down the center. Light, pure, blinding, poured out. The heart rose, a pulsing crimson gem the size of a fist, beating like a living thing. It floated toward me, settling gently in my open palms. Warmth flooded back, not the bond, but something else. Power. Ancient. Unyielding. The guardian bowed her head once. "It is done. Return to your lands. Wield it wisely. And remember, some prices are paid in silence." She vanished. The stone stood empty again. I clutched the heart to my chest, tears streaming, body shaking. The emptiness where the bond used to live ached like a fresh wound, but beneath it burned purpose, fierce, loving, unbreakable. I had what I came for. Now I had to go home. I turned west, the heart's glow lighting my path through the gloom. Every step hurt. Every breath reminded me of what I'd lost. But somewhere ahead my king waited, unaware that the woman who'd saved him had just carved out her own heart to do it. I smiled through the tears anyway, because even without the bond, I still loved him enough to burn for him, and I was coming back. Chapter 4, The Victorious Return. The journey back was a fever dream of pain and purpose. The heart of the first howl beat against my chest like a second heart. Its crimson glow muted beneath my leathers so it wouldn't blind me in the dark. Without the mate bond, the world felt strangely hollow. Colors duller, scents flatter, every silence louder. Yet the absence sharpened everything else. The ache in my shoulder, the burn in my thighs, the fierce, unbroken love that still lived in me even when the silver cord was severed. I ran until my paws bled, shifted back to 2 legs when the pain became too much, then ran again. 3 days blurred into 4. I avoided roads, skirted villages, drank from streams that tasted of iron and memory. Every night I pressed the heart to my skin and let its warmth chase away the cold emptiness where Riker used to live. I whispered to it like a lover, promises, apologies, hopes I no longer had the right to speak aloud. On the 5th dawn, I crested the final ridge. Below me lay Silverwood lands. The sight stole what little breath I had left. Fields that had been ash and ruin now showed green shoots pushing through blackened soil. Smoke no longer rose from burning villages. Instead, thin threads of hearth smoke curled lazily from rebuilt roofs. Warriors patrolled the borders, not limping, not hollow-eyed, but strong, shoulders back, eyes sharp. The pack was breathing again. And in the distance, the palace spires caught the first true sunlight in months, gleaming like they remembered how to be proud. Tears blurred the view. I laughed, hoarse, broken, joyful, and started down the slope at a dead run. The sentries spotted me first. A howl split the air. Shock, recognition, disbelief. Then another, and another. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder waking from sleep. By the time I reached the outer gates, half the pack was pouring out. Pups racing ahead, elders leaning on canes, warriors dropping weapons to sprint toward me. Isolde! My Luna! She's back, she's alive! They lifted me off my feet before I could speak. Arms, shoulders, laughter, tears. Someone pressed a water skin to my lips. Someone else wrapped a cloak around my shaking shoulders. I let them carry me through the gates, through streets lined with cheering faces, past homes that no longer smelled of despair. The throne hall doors flew open. And there he was, Riker. He stood at the top of the dais, frozen, eyes wide and wild. His dark hair was longer, unkempt. Shadows lived under those golden eyes that had once looked at me like I hung the moon. For one endless heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then he broke. He crossed the hall in 3 strides, shoved through the crowd, and crashed into me like a wave against rock. His arms banded around me so tight I couldn't breathe, didn't want to. I buried my face in his chest, inhaling pine, smoke, him. The heart pulsed hot against my sternum, but without the bond I couldn't feel his soul brush mine. Only his body, solid, trembling, alive. Isolde, he rasped, voice wrecked. Gods, Isolde! I pulled back just enough to look at him. Tears streaked his face. Mine matched. I smiled, shaky, radiant, loving, and lifted the heart from beneath my leathers. I brought it, I whispered. The war's end tonight. His gaze dropped to the glowing gem. Understanding hit like a blow. He looked back at me, searching, horrified, grateful, and then he kissed me. Not gentle, not careful, desperate, starving, like a man who'd spent days believing his heart had been ripped out and suddenly found it beating in someone else's hands. I kissed him back with everything I had left, every mile run, every wound taken, every tear shed. My fingers knotted in his hair. His hands roamed my back, my hips, pulling me impossibly closer. The pack around us faded to a roar of cheers and howls, but I barely heard them. There was only him, his mouth claiming mine, his growl vibrating through my bones, the way he lifted me against him like he'd never let go again. We broke apart, gasping, his forehead pressed to mine. Never again, he said, voice low and fierce. Never leave me again. I smiled through fresh tears, cupping his face. I came back. He carried me through the halls. Didn't wait for ceremony, didn't care who saw. Guards parted. Servants smiled and looked away. He kicked our chamber doors shut behind us and pressed me against the nearest wall, mouth on my throat, hands tearing at laces and leather with shaking urgency. Isolde, he breathed against my skin over and over like a prayer. My Luna, my everything. I arched into him, fingers digging into his shoulders. Riker, please. Clothes fell away in a frantic rush. His mouth found every mark the wilds had left, kissing the healing claw scars on my shoulder, the bruises on my ribs, the raw patches where I'd run until I bled. Reverent, possessive, loving. When he finally laid me on our bed, the same furs that still carried the ghost of our last night together, he moved over me slow, deliberate, eyes locked on mine. No bond to guide us now, but we didn't need it. We knew each other's rhythms, each other's sighs. He entered me in one long, deep thrust that drew a broken moan from both of us. Mine, he growled, hips rolling in a rhythm that built like a storm. Yours, I gasped, legs wrapping around him, nails scoring his back the way I knew he loved. We moved together, urgent, tender, raw. Pleasure coiled tight and hot, every stroke a promise, every kiss a vow. When release hit us, it was shattering. His name on my lips, mine on his, bodies trembling in perfect, aching unison. Afterward, he held me like I might vanish again. I traced the lines of his face, smiling softly even as sorrow lingered in the hollow where the bond used to be. "You're home," he murmured into my hair. "I'm home." He kissed my temple, voice cracking. "Never leave me again." I closed my eyes, the heart's glow faint against my chest. "I won't," I whispered. But in the quiet afterglow, something flickered in his golden eyes, shadowed, fleeting, almost guilty. I told myself it was exhaustion, relief, love. I told myself many things that night. Chapter 5, Months of Sunlight. The palace woke differently after that night. Sunlight poured through, the tall arched windows like it had been waiting for permission, gilding the stone floors and turning dust motes into tiny stars. For the first time in longer than anyone could remember, laughter echoed down the corridors instead of hushed worry. Warriors trained with purpose again, not desperation. Pups chased each other through the gardens, their shrieks bright and unafraid. The pack was healing, slowly, visibly, beautifully, and so was Riker. I watched him from our balcony one morning as he stood on the training field below, shirtless, sweat gleaming on the broad plains of his back while he sparred with his beta. Every movement was lighter now, less weighted by ghosts. When he pinned the other wolf and offered a hand up, the grin he flashed was the one I'd fallen in love with years ago. Crooked, boyish, devastating. He caught me watching. His golden eyes found mine across the distance, and the heat in them made my breath hitch even from here. He said something low to the beta, then jogged toward the palace stairs, taking them two at a time. By the time he reached our chambers, I was already smiling, leaning against the doorframe with my arms crossed. "Miss me already, my king?" I teased. He didn't answer with words. He simply closed the distance, cupped my face in both hands, and kissed me like we hadn't spent the entire previous night wrapped in each other. The kiss was slow this time, deep, languid, tasting of mint and morning and the promise of forever. His thumb stroked my cheekbones, while his body pressed me gently, back into the room until my spine met the cool wall. I sighed into his mouth, fingers sliding into his damp hair. "Always miss you," he murmured against my lips. "Even when you're right here." We spent the days rebuilding side by side. I walked the borders with him, pointing out weak points the heart could reinforce its power, seeped into the land like warm blood into soil, knitting defenses stronger than stone or steel. He listened, asked sharp questions, implemented every suggestion without hesitation. The intellectual rhythm between us felt new again. No bond to shortcut understanding, just two minds meeting, challenging, completing. Nights were ours alone. One evening he led me out past the palace walls, through moonlit pines to a hidden clearing. We'd claimed long ago our secret place. A blanket waited, spread beneath the stars, a bottle of elderberry wine, and a small fire already crackling. He pulled me down beside him, poured wine into a single cup we passed back and forth. His free hand traced idle patterns on my thigh, higher with each pass until my breath came shallow. "Remember the first time we came here?" he asked softly. I laughed, leaning into his shoulder. "You were so nervous you nearly dropped me in the stream." "I was terrified you'd say no." His voice dropped, rough with memory. "Terrified the moon goddess had made a mistake pairing a cursed, voiceless prince with someone like you." I turned to face him fully. "She didn't." He set the cup aside and pulled me into his lap, straddling him. His hands slid under my tunic, warm palms gliding up my bare back. "No," he agreed, kissing the hollow of my throat. "She gave me everything." Clothes disappeared slowly this time. reverent, unhurried. Moonlight painted us silver as he laid me back on the blanket, mouth following the path his hands had charted. He worshipped every inch, the curve of my breast, the dip of my waist, the sensitive skin behind my knee. When his tongue found the place that made me arch and gasp his name, he groaned like he was tasting heaven. I tugged him up, kneading him closer, deeper. He settled between my thighs, entering me in one smooth glide that drew matching moans from us both. We moved together under the open sky, slow rolls of hips, whispered endearments, fingers laced tight. Pleasure built in quiet waves until it crested gentle and endless, leaving us trembling, clinging, laughing breathlessly against each other's skin. Afterward, he wrapped us in the blanket, my head on his chest, his heartbeat steady under my ear. "Tell me you're staying," he murmured into my hair. "I'm staying. Promise. I promise." We fell asleep like that, tangled, warm, happy. The months slipped by in a golden haze. Spring turned to summer. Crops flourished. Alliances strengthened. The heart's power rippled outward, turning back raiders before they could even reach our borders. Riker slept through nights now, his arms always around me. I woke to his kisses, fell asleep to his fingers tracing my spine. There were other nights, wilder ones. A storm-lashed evening when he took me against the window of our chambers, rain drumming the glass while thunder masked my cries. A lazy afternoon in the hot springs beneath the palace, water steaming around us as he lifted me onto the smooth stone ledge and loved me until my legs shook. Each time felt like rediscovery, raw, tender, consuming. I smiled more than I had in years, laughed until my sides ached, loved him so fiercely it sometimes scared me. And yet, there were moments, small, flickering, the way his gaze sometimes drifted when he thought I wasn't looking, distant, shadowed, the way he'd tense when certain messengers arrived, dismissing them quickly, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume on his cloak once or twice, quickly explained as a visiting diplomat's sister, brushed off with a kiss and a change of subject. I told myself it was nothing. The pack was whole. We were whole. We had time. One crisp autumn evening, as the first red leaves drifted past our balcony, a rider galloped through the gates below. Dust swirled. The messenger dismounted, face pale, and hurried toward the throne hall with a sealed scroll clutched in his fist. Riker watched from beside me, body going unnaturally still. I felt the shift before I understood it, a chill that had nothing to do with the falling temperature. He turned to me, smile easy, but his eyes held something dark. "I'll handle this," he said, brushing a kiss to my forehead. "Stay here, enjoy the sunset." He walked away. I watched him go, heart suddenly loud in my chest. The months of sunlight had been perfect. Too perfect, perhaps, and perfection, I was beginning to learn, could hide cracks no one wanted to see. Chapter 6. Cracks in the Throne. The messenger's boots echoed too loudly on the marble stairs leading to the throne hall. I stayed on the balcony long after Riker disappeared inside, arms wrapped around myself against the sudden bite in the autumn wind. The red leaves kept falling, slow, graceful spirals that should have felt peaceful. Instead, each one landing felt like a quiet warning. I waited. Minutes stretched, then half an hour. The sunset bled orange across the valley, turning the palace spires the color of fresh wounds. Still no sign of him. When he finally emerged, the easy smile he'd worn earlier was gone. His shoulders sat higher, tighter. He climbed the stairs to our chambers without looking up, without the usual glance toward the balcony to find me watching. I met him at the door. "Riker?" He paused, hand on the latch. For a heartbeat, his face softened, the way it always did when he saw me, but the shadow behind his eyes didn't leave. "Everything all right?" I asked, keeping my voice light even as my pulse kicked harder. He stepped inside, pulling me gently with him. The door closed. The room felt smaller suddenly. "Just border reports," he said. "Nothing we can't handle." His fingers brushed my cheek, thumb tracing the line of my jaw. The touch was warm, familiar, achingly tender. Yet something in it trembled, like a man holding something fragile he was afraid of breaking. I searched his face. "You're lying." The words slipped out softer than I meant. Not accusation, just truth. He exhaled long and ragged, then pulled me against his chest. His heartbeat thundered under my ear, Too fast, too unsteady for the calm king who'd just spent months rebuilding a kingdom. "I don't want to bring this into our nights," he murmured into my hair. "Not yet. Let me keep you safe from it a little longer." Safe. The word landed like a stone in still water. I tilted my head back, meeting his gaze. Those golden eyes I'd once called home now held storms I couldn't read. "Riker, whatever it is, we face it together, that's what we promised." He cupped my face with both hands, forehead pressing to mine. His breath ghosted my lips, warm, unsteady. "I know," he whispered, "but some shadows, I need to stare them down alone first, for you, for us." He kissed me then, not hungry, not claiming. Slow, deep, devastatingly gentle. The kind of kiss that said goodbye to something without using words. His lips lingered, tasting of salt and unspoken fear. When he pulled back, his thumbs brushed away tears I hadn't realized were falling. "I love you," he said, voice cracking on the edges. "More than the crown, more than the pack, more than anything the moon goddess ever gave me." The words wrapped around my heart like silk and thorns at the same time. Beautiful, painful, true. I smiled through the ache, fingers threading into his hair. "Then let me stand beside you, not behind you." He closed his eyes for a long moment, lashes dark against his cheeks. When he opened them again, the storm was still there, but quieter. "Soon," he promised, "I just need time." He led me to the bed, pulled back the furs and drew me down beside him. No urgency tonight. No rush to lose ourselves. Just bodies pressed close, his arms locked around me like I might slip away in the dark. His chin rested on the crown of my head. I listened to the unsteady rhythm of his breathing, felt the tension that never quite left his muscles. We lay like that for hours, silent, holding on. Every so often his fingers would trace slow circles on my back, over my shoulder, along my spine. Each touch carried weight, regret, gratitude, a desperate kind of devotion. I pressed my lips to the hollow of his throat, tasting salt and skin and the faint tremor he couldn't hide. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered against his pulse. His arms tightened, I know. But the lie lived between us now, small, fragile, growing. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves scratched against the window like fingernails. Somewhere far below, the throne hall doors opened and closed again. Footsteps. Voices. Plans being made without me. I closed my eyes and breathed him in. Pine, smoke, the faint metallic edge of worry. This was still us. Still love. Still the man who'd once laughed against my skin under starlight. Who'd kissed my tears away when the pack was dying. Who'd carried me through halls like I was the only thing worth ruling for. Yet the cracks were spreading. Thin, silent, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking. I was looking, and the longer I looked, the more I felt the cold seep in. That night I fell asleep listening to his heartbeat. Strong, beloved, and for the first time lying to me. Chapter 7. The letter that ended us. The next morning arrived gray and heavy, the kind of dawn that presses down instead of lifting. I woke before Riker, something I hadn't done in months. His arm still lay across my waist, heavy with sleep. But his breathing wasn't peaceful anymore. It came in short, uneven pulls, like even dreams were fighting him. I slipped from under his hold carefully, heart already loud in my throat. The room felt colder without his warmth, the furs suddenly too heavy, the air too still. I dressed quietly in the half-light. Simple tunic, dark cloak, boots that made no sound. I told myself I was just going for a walk, to clear my head, to shake the unease that had settled in my bones overnight. But deep down, I knew better. The cracks had widened while we slept. Down in the throne hall, the air smelled of wax and old stone. Servants moved like shadows, lighting braziers, sweeping yesterday's leaves that had blown in through the open doors. Riker's beta stood near the dais, arms crossed, face unreadable. When he saw me, he straightened, a flicker of something, pity, crossing his features before he masked it. "Luna," he said, dipping his head. "The king asked for the pack to assemble at dusk." My stomach dropped. "All of them? Everyone who can stand, no exceptions." I searched his eyes. "What's happening?" He hesitated, long enough that the silence answered first. "He'll speak to you himself soon." I turned away before the sting could show. The beta's reluctance wasn't cruelty, it was loyalty. Loyalty to a king who was about to break something sacred. The day crawled. I walked the gardens alone, past roses that had bloomed again because of the heart's power, past pups who waved and called my name with innocent joy. Every smile I returned felt like lifting stone. The emptiness where the bond used to live ached sharper today. Not just absence, but anticipation of worse. By mid-afternoon, Riker found me on the balcony overlooking the training fields. He looked older in the harsh light, lines etched deeper around his mouth, eyes shadowed like bruises. Isolde. He said my name like it hurt him. I turned slowly. Tell me. He stepped closer but didn't touch me. The distance between us felt wider than the valley below. The scroll last night. His voice was low, careful. It wasn't border reports, it was a demand from the Council of Elders in the Northern Territories. They've been watching us, watching me. They say the heart's power is unstable without balance. Balance, I echoed, the word tasting like ash. They claim the severance I allowed, you leaving, coming back without the bond, has left a fracture. They say the land feels it. The alliances feel it. They're threatening to withdraw support, to let old enemies flood back in unless... He swallowed. Unless the source of the fracture is removed. Me. The word didn't need to be spoken. It hung between us, sharp as any blade. I laughed once, short, bitter, disbelieving. They want you to exile your Luna. The one who brought the heart, the one who saved everything. His jaw clenched. They want stability. They want the pack to survive what comes next. And what do you want, Riker? His eyes met mine, raw, tormented, golden, and shattered. I want you. I've always wanted only you. Then say no. I did. His voice cracked. Last night I told them no. They gave me until dusk to reconsider. If I don't, they'll call for a vote of no confidence. The pack will tear itself apart, choosing sides. Blood in the streets. Again. I stared at him, chest so tight I could barely draw breath. So you're choosing. I'm choosing the pack, he whispered. Because if I don't, there won't be anything left for either of us. Tears burned behind my eyes, hot, furious, loving. You're choosing them over me. I'm choosing survival over selfish love. The words landed like a slap. I stepped back, shaking my head. Selfish? I walked into the wilds alone. I severed our bond. I bled for this pack, for you, while you slept safe in our bed. And now you call my love selfish? He flinched like I'd struck him. That's not what I... It is. My voice stayed steady even as everything inside me screamed. You're rewriting it already in your head so it's easier. He reached for me. I stepped back again. Don't! Isolde, please. No. I lifted my chin, forcing the tears to stay where they were. You don't get to hold me while you prepare to throw me away. Silence stretched, painful, endless. At dusk, the entire pack gathered in the great courtyard. Torches flickered, faces I'd fought beside, laughed with, bled for, all turned toward the dais where Riker stood like a statue carved from grief. I stood at the edge of the crowd, cloak pulled tight, heart hammering so hard I thought it might break ribs. He looked out over them, his people, his burden, and his voice rang clear, steady, kingly. Tonight we face a choice none of us wanted. Murmurs rippled. The heart of the first howl has brought us peace, but at a cost. The elders demand balance, they demand the severance be completed. Eyes turned to me, whispers became gasps. Riker's gaze found mine across the sea of faces. For one heartbeat the king vanished. There was only the man who'd once kissed me under starlight, who'd promised forever. Then he spoke the words that ended us. Warriors, take her from the packlands. The command fell like an axe. Hands, familiar hands, closed around my arms. Not rough. Almost gentle. Regretful. I didn't fight. Fighting would only spill more blood, and I had none left to give. They led me forward, past faces wet with tears, past pups who reached for me and were pulled back, past the beta who wouldn't meet my eyes. Riker stepped down from the dais, in his hand a single folded parchment. He pressed it into my fingers without looking at me. The rejection letter. Cold, official, final. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The words were already carved into the air between us. He finally met my gaze, eyes bright with unshed tears, voice barely above a whisper. Go. One word. One devastating, loving, cowardly word. I turned, walked, head high, shoulders back. The gates opened before me like jaws. The pack watched in silence as the woman who'd saved them was cast out. I stepped beyond the boundary stones. The moment my foot crossed, something inside me cracked wide open. Not pain, not anger, but a quiet, endless sorrow so deep it felt like peace. I didn't look back, but I felt his stare burning between my shoulder blades until the forest swallowed me whole. And in my hand the letter trembled. Chapter 8. Alone with the Moon. The forest beyond the boundary stones didn't swallow me gently. It clawed. Branches reached like accusing fingers, snagging my cloak, drawing thin lines of blood across my arms. Roots rose to trip me. The wind carried the distant echo of pack howls, mourning, confused, torn, and each one landed like a fresh bruise on my heart. I walked until the sounds faded, until the only noise left was my ragged breathing and the crunch of leaves under boots that felt heavier with every step. I didn't cry at first. Tears would have been too easy, too clean. Instead, something colder settled in my chest. A quiet, burning numbness that made every heartbeat feel borrowed. The letter stayed clutched in my fist, parchment creased and damp from sweat and unshed grief. I couldn't bring myself to open it. Not yet. Not while the ink still smelled faintly of him. Pine, smoke, the wax seal of the silverwood crest. Night fell fast. I found shelter in the hollow of a massive fallen oak, its roots arching overhead like the ribs of some ancient beast. I curled into the curve of it, cloak pulled tight, knees to chest. The moon rose silver and indifferent, spilling light across the moss like spilled milk. I stared at her until my eyes burned. You watched me leave him once, I whispered to the sky. You watched me sever everything to save him, and now you watch this? No answer came, only silence, vast and uncaring. That first night the cold wasn't just weather. It was absence. No bond to warm the hollow places. No heartbeat echoing mine across distance. Just me, alone with the moon and the truth I hadn't wanted to face. I'd given everything twice, and both times it ended the same way. Dawn brought the first wave of sickness. I woke retching into the underbrush, stomach heaving nothing but bile and regret. When it passed, I sat back against the oak, trembling, hand pressed to my abdomen. The realization hit slow, then all at once, like dawn breaking over a battlefield. A child, his child, ours. A tiny heartbeat I hadn't known was there, hidden beneath the ruin of everything else. I laughed then, sharp, broken, disbelieving. Tears finally came, hot and fast, sliding down my cheeks to drip onto the leaves. Not just sorrow, not just rage. Something fiercer bloomed beneath them. A fierce, protective, incandescent love so bright it almost hurt to hold. I placed both hands over the small swell that wasn't visible yet and whispered, "You're safe, I've got you." The words tasted like a vow. Days blurred into weeks. I moved deeper into unclaimed territory, places even rogues avoided. I hunted when I could stomach it, drank from streams that tasted of stone and memory, slept in shallow dens I dug with my hands. My body changed slowly, breasts tender, waist softening, exhaustion bone deep. Yet every flutter, every tiny kick that came later, felt like defiance, like proof that something unbreakable had survived the breaking. I talked to the child constantly, about the man who didn't know he was a father, about the pack that had cheered me once and cast me out the next, about the heart I'd carried back like a promise, only to have it used as the excuse to discard me. I told our baby stories of starlit clearings, of laughter shared under blankets, of a king who'd once looked at me like I was the moon itself. I didn't lie. I didn't soften the edges. But I never spoke hate, only sorrow, only the love that refused to die even when it should have. Nights were the hardest. When the moon hung full and bright, I'd sit with my back to a tree, knees drawn up, and let the grief roll through me in waves. I'd press the rejection letter, still sealed, against my chest and imagine what it said. I didn't need to read it. I already knew the shape of the wound. Cold words, official lines, his signature at the bottom like a full stop on our story. Yet sometimes in the quietest hours I'd catch myself smiling, small, secret, pained. Because even without him, this child carried his scent in my blood. Golden eyes, perhaps. A stubborn jaw. a heart too big for the world. One frostbitten morning, months later, I woke to the sound of distant howls, not the strong, unified chorus of Silverwood. Broken, scattered, desperate, I froze, breath clouding in the cold air. The howls carried stories on the wind. Hunger, sickness, borders crumbling, warriors falling without purpose. Calamity, ruin, the very collapse I'd walked into the wilds to prevent. I pressed a hand to my rounded belly and felt the answering kick, strong, insistent. The pack was dying without me, and somewhere in that dying kingdom, a king I still loved with every shattered piece of myself was watching it happen. I rose slowly, cloak wrapped tight against the wind. The child moved again as if urging me forward. I looked west toward home that was no longer home. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but my chin lifted. Not yet. Not while this small life needed me whole. But the howls kept coming, fainter each night, more frantic. And every time they reached me, the ache in my chest sharpened into something new. Hope, fierce, impossible, loving. Because even cast out, even rejected, even alone, I was still there, Luna. And some bonds, it turned out, couldn't be severed with parchment and command. Chapter 9. The kingdom that fell without her. The howls never stopped coming. They arrived on every wind that blew from the west, faint at first, then louder, more ragged, more pleading. Each night they grew thinner, like voices losing strength one breath at a time. I listened from whatever shelter I'd claimed, a shallow cave mouth, the lee of a boulder, a thicket so dense light barely reached the ground. I listened, and every distant cry carved another notch in the armor I'd built around my heart. The child inside me was strong now. Kicks like small thunder, rolls that made my belly ripple under my palm. I'd rest my hand there during the quiet hours and whisper stories of a father who once ruled with laughter in his voice, of a pack that had known sunlight before it forgot how to shine. The baby answered with movement, fierce, insistent, as though already claiming a place in a world that had tried to erase us both. Years passed in seasons of solitude, 3 winters, 3 springs. Enough time for scars to silver over, for grief to settle into something quieter than rage, something deeper, more dangerous, clarity. I no longer looked like the Luna who had walked out of Silverwood gates with her chin high and tears held back. My hair had grown long and wild, braided with vines and feathers found along the way. My body bore new marks, stretch marks like silver rivers across my abdomen, a faint scar on my forearm from a lone rogue who learned too late I was no easy prey. My eyes, though. My eyes still carried the same fire Riker had once called home. One twilight the howls changed, not scattered anymore. Unified, desperate. A single long note that rose and fell like a plea carried on dying breath. It came from the direction of the old border ridge, the one I'd crossed that first night, bleeding and determined. I stood slowly, hand on the swell of my belly that was no longer a secret but a visible truth. The child kicked hard, as if sensing the shift in the air. I looked west. The moon rose full and merciless, lighting the path like it remembered every step I'd taken away from him. I started walking. Not running, not fleeing. Walking, with purpose, with sorrow, with the kind of love that survives betrayal because it was never built on promises anyway. The journey took 7 days. Each night the howls grew closer, more broken. I passed abandoned outposts, burned crofts, fields gone to seed and weed. The land itself looked wounded, trees leaning as though exhausted, streams running thin and clouded. The heart's power had held for a while, then faltered when the one who carried its true balance was cast out. On the 7th evening I reached the ridge overlooking Silverwood Valley. What I saw stole the air from my lungs. The palace still stood, towers cracked but upright, walls blackened by smoke that no longer rose. Below it, the villages were half ghosts. Roofs caved, streets empty save for a few thin figures moving like shadows. No pups played, no warriors trained. Only silence, punctuated by the occasional mournful howl that rose and died unanswered. I descended halfway down the ridge, then stopped. I would go no farther. Not into those gates. Not past those boundary stones that had once welcomed me and later spat me out. I sat on a flat boulder, cloak wrapped tight, and waited. The moon climbed higher. Hours passed. Then I heard it, not a howl but footsteps, heavy, uneven, one set, alone. A figure emerged from the tree line below, tall, broad-shouldered but moving like a man carrying the weight of a fallen kingdom on his back. His hair was longer, streaked with silver that caught the moonlight. His cloak was torn, his boots caked with mud from weeks, maybe months, of travel. Riker. He climbed the ridge slowly, breath labored, eyes scanning the darkness until they found me. He froze. For one endless heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then he dropped to his knees in the dirt 10 paces away, head bowed. Isolde. My name on his lips still carried the power to undo me. I felt it in my chest, sharp and sweet and devastating. I didn't stand. I stayed seated, hand resting protectively over the swell of my belly. He lifted his head. His golden eyes, once fierce, once commanding, were hollowed by grief, rimmed red from nights without sleep. When his gaze dropped to my rounded form, understanding crashed over him like a wave. His face crumpled, grief, wonder, shame, love, all at once. "Our child," he whispered, voice cracking open. I nodded once, yes. He crawled forward, actually crawled, the once mighty Alpha King reduced to this. A broken man on hands and knees, stopping just short of touching me. "I searched," he said, words tumbling out raw and ragged. "Every border, every rogue camp, every whisper of a lone she-wolf with silver-streaked hair and eyes like storm clouds. I left the throne empty. I left the pack to the elders. I left everything, because nothing meant anything without you." Tears tracked down his face, silent, endless. He pressed both palms to the ground between us like he was afraid the earth itself would reject him if he came closer. "The pack is dying," he continued, voice barely holding together. "The heart's power faded the moment you crossed the boundary stones. The land sickened. Crops failed. Warriors fell. The elders blamed me, rightly. I blamed myself more. Every day I woke to a kingdom that no longer breathed, and every night I dreamed of the woman I threw away to save it." He lifted his eyes to mine, pleading, shattered. "I was wrong. I thought exiling you would bring stability. I thought the council knew better. I thought I was protecting them." A bitter laugh escaped him. "I destroyed everything I swore to protect, including us." The child kicked, hard, insistent, as though answering for both of us. Riker's gaze dropped to my belly again. Fresh tears fell. "I don't ask forgiveness," he said quietly. "I don't ask you to come back to a pack that betrayed you. I don't ask you to wear the title of Luna again." He swallowed hard. "I'm only asking, let me see our child. Let me know its name. Let me carry some small piece of the family I broke. And if you say no, if you tell me to crawl back to the ruin I made and die there, I will go, without argument, without another word." Silence stretched between us, painful, endless, alive with everything we'd lost and everything that still refused to die. I looked at him, really looked. The king was gone. What remained was the man who once laughed under starlight, who once kissed my tears away when the pack was dying, who once carried me through halls like I was the only thing worth ruling for. That man was still there, buried under years of regret, but breathing. I reached down slowly. My fingers brushed his silver-streaked hair. He shuddered at the touch, leaning into it like a man starved for light. "I haven't decided what comes next," I told him, voice steady even as tears slipped free. "But this child deserves to know its father isn't a ghost in stories." His breath hitched. He pressed his forehead gently to my abdomen, reverent, trembling. "Thank you," he whispered over and over like a prayer. The moon watched through the branches. Somewhere far below, the first real howl in years rose. Not mourning, but something closer to hope. We stayed like that a long time. Him on his knees, me seated on the boulder, our child between us like a fragile bridge. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. Fierce, painful, beautiful. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like possibility. She gave him everything. Her bond, her blood, her soul. And he repaid her with exiles in front of the entire pack. Years later, the once mighty Alpha King crawls through the ruins on his knees, silver streaking his hair, begging for the child he never knew he had. One touch could change everything. One word could destroy him forever. So tell me right now, would you let him near the baby after he shattered your heart? Would you give a broken king one last chance at redemption? Or would you walk away and let the kingdom burn without you? Drop your answer in the comments. Be brutally honest. Team forgive him. Team she deserves better. Team make him suffer first. If this story already wrecked you, smash that like button, hit follow so you don't miss the next heartbreak, and comment your choice below. I'm reading every single one. Part 1 is already playing. Don't stop now. The ending will either heal you or finish breaking you. Which side are you on? Comment right now.